Seriously, did you just lose your meat stick?
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's something in there, dude. Just leave it.
Are you kidding me?
We'll just head to the house. Just leave it.
The hell with that.
Oh, yeah, there's something in there.
Want one?
Thank you.
It was worth it.
Oh, man, this is incredible.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Hey, man, grab me a meat stick. I think I can reach it if I just a little more. Just let me go a little. I can't. Just a little more. I almost got it. Careful! Oh, God. No. Come on, just reach. Reach. Just grab my hand. I can't hold it. Grab my hand.
Give me the meat stick. This other hand's closer. The one with the stick is... Oh! What am I supposed to say?
It doesn't matter. He's dead. He ain't listening to you anyway.
I'm hungry.
No. Put it away. I can't watch it. Oh, crap. Just reach in. You gotta pull it. Just grab it. Just take it out of his hand. What do you mean you can't?
He won't let go.
What do you mean he won't let go? He's dead.
Help me. Get in there. No, just hold on.
Make him let go of it. No, I got you. Just go in for a hug. Go and get on in there. It's a bad loss. Yeah, hug him up. Just reach. Hug him up.
He's breathing. It's on the other side.
Go.
I can't do it.
Help me, Lord. Help me get over this loss.
I can't breathe.
Yeah, I can't breathe. I'm so upset. I can't breathe. Stop. You knock on wood so they go to heaven. It's like a lucky. Hey, get the stick.
Yeah.
Hey, did you get the meat stick?
Yeah, I got it.
Hey, just hold tight for a second. They're moving the casket. Just hold tight.
Yeah, that's no worries. I got it.
What exactly is plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. 100% pure protein-packed power in a stick. I want Wenzel's Farm. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. What exactly is a meat substitute or plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. The kind you find at Wenzel's Farm and the only kind they use. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked right here in the heartland of America. Wenzel's Farm offers 14 flavors of mouth-watering protein-packed power in a stick, except no substitute. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. Looking for something to power your day? Then look no further than Wenzel's Farm Snack Sticks. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked, these protein-packed power sticks deliver truly sustainable energy. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. You work hard and play hard. You need real fuel to power your day. Not some tofu stuffed rice cake or plant-based meat substitute. No, you need honest-to-goodness homegrown protein-packed power in a stick. You need Wenzel's Farm. Quality cuts of meat handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked for a great tasting snack that delivers real energy. Power up and put the smack down on whatever your day brings with Wenzel's Farm. Real meat for real life.
What do you make of this up here? Just showed up in the yard a couple days
Is a
ago.
dog been digging in there?
I don't think so, dude. That goes way down in there. Seriously, did you just lose your meat stick?
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's something in there, dude. Just leave it.
Are you kidding me?
We'll just head to us. Just leave it.
The hell with that.
Oh, yeah. There's something in there. Ah!
Want one?
Thank you.
It was worth it.
Oh, man, this is incredible.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Hey, man, grab me a meat stick. I think I can reach it if I just a little more. Just let me go a little. I can't. Just a little more. I almost got it. Careful! Oh, God. No, come on, just reach. Reach. Just grab my hand. Grab my hand.
Give me the meat stick. This other hand's closer. The one with the stick is. Oh. What am I supposed to say?
It doesn't matter. He's dead. He ain't listening to you anyway.
I'm hungry.
No. Put it away. I can't watch it. Oh, crap. Just reach in. You gotta pull it. Just grab it. Just take it out of his hand. What do you mean you can't?
He won't let go.
What do you mean he won't let go? He's dead.
Help me. Get in there. No, just hold on.
Make him let go of it. No, I got you. Just go in for a hug. Go and get on in there. It's a bad loss. Yeah, hug him up. Just reach. Hug him up.
He's breathing.
It's on the other side.
Go.
They can't.
Just
Hello and welcome back to NECC. I am Irish and joined with me is Goose. We have a very exciting matchup. We have Cumberland versus a challenger team in Akron. Still a collegiate team, but also made it to challengers. That's incredible for a collegiate team and speaks of a lot of strength that hopefully Cumberland can overcome if they want to survive.
Yeah, this is going to be a not so much uneven matchup these teams have faced before. But again, a Cumberland already last week losing in CR6 playoffs and then Akron making the grand finals of CR6 playoffs. So these teams have a history. Akron's still kicking, and I mean, it's Akron. We can only really say so much. We can actually look at the bracket and see the path both of these teams have taken to get to this point. A forfeit win against Fisher Falcons, a little bit of a scheduling mishap there, but then a 2-0 from or against Oklahoma City. And Akron Blue, they don't need forfeits. They've gone a total of 4 maps through 2 best of 3s here today. They are the 1 seed. Cumberland, again, I don't think this is going to be a complete blowout, but I don't necessarily think that Cumberland is going to be able to trip Akron up too much.
Yeah, part of our jobs is kind of establishing, which team is the favorite, which team is the underdog. And in this matchup, Akron is definitely the favorite, not just because, like you said, they've done very well in collegiate recently, but also, once again, this is a team that can fight up at a much higher level than just at this kind of collegiate level.
Going into our rosters, we'll be able to see who exactly is playing today. Don't think we have any surprises. Both rosters having their full 5, which is really good for Cumberland. Akron Blue continuing. Another thing is I spoke about when I interviewed them last night with T-Van was that they play 6 games. They're in 6 leagues. They don't scrim. So this is going to be a situation where I don't want to prop it up as they're not going to try. They're not going to use strats. They said that they approach every single game the exact same way. It is no different if it is NECC, CR6, or a Challenger League. They approach every single game with the mindset of doing their best and winning. And that's a problem for Cumberland because Cumberland wants to fight against an Akron Blue that isn't holding or that is holding back on their punches. But that's something that I don't think we're going to see from Akron today.
No, yeah, for a while over the past few weeks, we have been kind of like asking, like, "Hey, can we cover an Akron game?" But one of the things that they've been very smartly trying to do is
Yep.
avoid having VODs on themselves, avoid having casters talking over what's going on and explaining the kind of thought processes of Akron, but then also stopping actual genuine analysts and coaches from reviewing them to the point where maybe they would miss out on a tier 2 opportunity. But now that they're in there, everything is just off. They've achieved what they want to, so like you said, they're not going to be holding anything back.
Yeah, going to Border First Clubhouse, a map that Akron just played last night, winning 7-2. So a little bit of a difficulty there. And again, this is one of the problems, in my opinion, the biggest problem for any team, especially a lower seed going up against Akron, is map pools. A lot of lower seeded collegiate teams simply just have a very small map pool compared to the Zips. They could pretty much play any map they want, especially in a collegiate setting where they're not going up against a T2, T3 team. And no shot up against Cumberland. They are really good in their own. They did eventually deserve that 6 seed. They deserve to get their way here. But at the end of the day, I really do think the lack of consistent map pool, the fact that we're going to Clubhouse, an Akron favorite, then going to Cafe, also an Akron favorite, it doesn't really seem like this map pool is just putting anything into the favor in Cumberland, even if it's just a simple inch.
Even still, you're talking about map pools and, the strongest maps for these teams, but still, we kind of end up on very standard maps. Akron banning out both Lair and Labs, and then Consulate being banned out at the very end, once again, by Akron. Those are kind of the three, more recent maps, and now that we've gotten back to Border, Clubhouse, and Cafe, everyone's kind of really going to know what they're doing. So, like you said, it's going to kind of come down more to execution, and Akron is just very strong.
Yeah, it is very strong. Again, I think going into this matchup, the best thing that Cumberland can do as we go into game is that that Cumberland needs to make sure that they can try and trip up Akron and try to give something new every round. The problem that I saw against UNT last night against Akron was they didn't adapt enough. They continued to do the exact same defensive setups. They didn't really change how they played on the attack round in and round out. And that gave a basic and easy blueprint for Akron to read. And if Cumberland are able to prevent themselves from doing that, it is going to force Akron to struggle a little bit.
This Cumberland starting on the attack for this map actually is very good for them, because this map is one of the few in the pool that does kind of lean attacking sided. So in a matchup where you're not really necessarily favored, starting on the favorable side might give them the momentum that they need to keep it close on this first map. First two bands coming out, and one of them very standard, that Blackbeard. That's just the most standard first band. Second of the Deimos. Now there are so many soft floors on this map that let you pressure maybe from below if they're attacking upstairs, or do the exact opposite of pressuring through vertical from the top on the first floor sites. But even still, I think a Deimos ban is definitely substandard and very interesting. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that came through, especially again because you have casted Akron recently? Is that a target?
I don't think it's necessarily a target ban. Specifically, Deimos has been used on Border a little bit more in recent history as kind of a solo lurk, a player on the attack, and especially going against Akron. I don't want to use the phrase that it's a direct counter, but Akron is a team on the attack that really loves to use any info that is available to them. So I think just simply taking off an operator that is not only powerful on this map specifically, but also an operator that can add a lot of that extra info capability to the belt of Akron is just one of those operators where I do think it would consistently give problems and trip up from Cumberland. So I don't exactly hate it.
Talk about information. For the Cumberland side, they are using a Lion instead. With that Deimos being banned out, they're still choosing to go for one info operator, although Ilkaby is still up on the board. Something that I very much expect at least one of these teams to play relatively consistently on this map, because she's just strong on every map, essentially every single site, especially when you're trying to clear those tight corners of, say, Fountain, when you're trying to take top floor on a mid-floor site. For this round, though, again, it's just the Lion, and that is off of a Monty as well, because one of the bans that came out was that Blackbeard, so you can't really use that as a spearhead. You're forced onto one of the older, more traditional shields. Cumberland choose to bring the Monty.
And I really like that from Cumberland, understanding that they need a spearhead to clear space around the map, especially with just how much utility Akron is bringing on this defense. It is a really good capability, or I guess warning sign that Cumberland can consistently read into what Akron is setting up. It eventually does come down to how they execute that, per se. Plexos just completely isolated is an absolute freebie for a pick. They can try to isolate and wedge him out of that position, and they won't have any success as of now. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there.
He's drawn a lot of focus, though, and for Cumberland's attack, eventually going to get the pick onto space, but Jet with a trade onto Tangly keeps things even. Plexio is still holding down his position, but Rifa, opposite side, finding yet another onto JetCon. Plexio finds one a second onto Spoonman. The D shield from Amati finally gets him, but only after Akron secure their man advantage and put Prone Stars as the last alive 1 versus 2 with Amati, and it seems so incredibly undoable. That just fell apart for Cumberland.
Yeah, he needs to try and take 2 isolated 1v1s. The problem there is Akron know exactly what they need to do.
Cross still over towards Africa. Prone forced into a rotate all the way over towards Armory, but Info still on the side of Akron, and a swing coming out of Krosa shuts it down right then and right there. Opening round for Akron, and although things went Cumberland's way at the very beginning, a very well-held mailbox by Plexios gets them the first round.
I mean, that is a round where I talked about that they had a really good setup. They had a fantastic counter with that Monty to try and spearhead their way, but it just came down to the execution. The execution was sloppy at best because they moved so slow, and the fact that they didn't realize that that castle was essentially barbecue chicken, free for pickings. They had both nades and firebolts with that Capitao. Obviously, I understand that you want to try and save that for later on going into the execution phase, but if you simply cannot clear out a castle and you need to use that utility, please use that utility. And then on top of that, because they moved so slow, they allowed for that Mozzie to make his way over through a hallway without anybody holding the cross on that single window, and then just walks away with a kill, supporting and allowing for JetCon to get an additional 2.
Not that much of a stats guy. I'm screamy color caster here, but I want to know what's the percentage on you casting and you making a barbecue chicken comment. I feel like it's somewhere in the ballpark of 100%. Almost every single time I cast with you, you say at least one thing about barbecue chicken, and I've never heard anyone else say it.
I would say at least 1 to 2 times per cast, and that goes for a best of 3, best of 1. It doesn't matter. If I see something that looks absolutely free, my mind immediately goes back to barbecue chicken. It just falls off the bone, and that's exactly what this attack is for Akron. It's just meat falling off the bone. It is so easy that they don't even have to work the bone to get it.
Plexios once again in break room. That's a position that last round he just shut down Cumberland. See Rifo with 2 kills. Yeah, he did a great job very early on for Cumberland, but in clearing out those tucked close positions, it all seemed to fall apart. Once again, they walked directly past a castle, and although it's not Plexios, it's still another important pick, and it just keeps getting worse. Kosa with a pick on a tangly tree, and it's just Norway and Spoonman spoon up what has otherwise been yet another failed entry.
The lack of info and just honestly any understanding of where this Akron defense is set up on this top floor has costed 3 separate isolated 1v1s, a pick onto Osa so deep from Armory that you should just not be losing that, and they're just not waiting for this additional drone economy to make their way through, and just so many ill-advised swings.
Truly unfortunate for Cumberland, as now they've left themselves in a 2 versus 5 And they have a little bit
No.
of space, but an immediate jump out gets one. A trade from Spooman keeps it not winnable at all. Kosa with a closeout and 2 rounds for Akron.
We've talked a lot about Akron. We've built them up as this giant, but this is not a situation where Akron is the better team. It is Cumberland falling short and just simply playing bad Siege. That opening round probably was the worst case scenario for the attack. As I talked about before those last 2 attackers died, with a jump out from JetCon helping out there, they just weren't waiting for that info from the drone economy to relay back to the players. A player repelled on that balcony, allowing for the player in armory so deep. A gunfight that you should not win, especially as an ace. It's kind of a situation where if Cumberland just slow down a little bit and get this info before they hit the go button, then these free picks, losing the sentry, simply will not happen. And I don't necessarily think it's something that they're going to fix at least anytime soon. And Akron, they know that.
We talked about Akron having this singular distinction of making tier 2, but also even before this season, even before this challenger stage, players like JetCon have played on rosters like SSG Academy. Space has been bouncing around that high tier 3, low tier 2 level for quite a while as well. And Kosa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he played with a lot of the HKR people at around that same level as well. So even though, like, yes, Akron has made tier 2 as a team, players have been around this level for quite a while as well. So yeah, they are strong players, this is a strong team, but also lots of experience on that team as well.
Yeah, and I think that is another one of the multiple legs on this spider that is this Akron team, is their experience. And every simple mistake that Cumberland makes, Akron is able to read into it miles before they even come up onto it. And it makes a problem because when Cumberland is playing bad, it's even worse because you're playing bad against Akron. And it's just these simple takes like this position over an armory that's taking an entire minute, and they didn't shoot 2 Lamai discs! You can't let this happen! And you've now wasted 2 ace charges in essentially an entire minute.
That is absolutely brutal for Cumberland's attack. We talked about them making mistakes in the first 2 attacks, and it just keeps happening. 3 Selmas for 1 small breach on the far left side, and it's a minute off the clock for Cumberland, and they're still just looking for an entry. Akron keeping them at arm's length very well, based on their guns, based on their positioning, but also based on 2 Lamai discs that were thrown outside.
Luckily enough for them, they haven't moved farther enough to lose a gunfight. Rifa completely alone. He is able to find that entry pick, and this now gives the opportunity for Drone Stars, but they didn't drone space in a refrag. But now the problem is, Akron, you've lost 2 players.
Still keeping it very close, trades back and forth, a 2 versus 2 for Akron versus Cumberland right now. Jobu, the amount of hectic, crazy action that's been going on the top floor is forced into a retake now. He's top east, still trying to connect with his teammate JetCon, last alive on site. With a minute left, Cumberland still laying out at a C4 that could very well have killed Tangly Tree. Instead, holds off for a little bit longer. Cumberland dropping back, also trying to connect with each other. Jobu with the swing. Hop in towards office. Jobu snaps it up, leaving it just on at Tangly Tree. Was trying to get something done towards that site window, but as soon as he jumps onto site from it, he's snapped up. Yet another round and a flawless start for Akron's defense. Rio.
I've talked a lot about how this info gathering game for Cumberland has been just absolutely poor. They haven't been able to consistently gather this info. In part, they haven't been able, throughout these first 3 rounds, been able to gather a overall idea on the overall defensive setup from Akron. And in part because of that, because they are going into this map essentially completely blind, they, in a way, without knowing and without doing it on purpose, force themselves into 1v1s after 1v1s because the players are confused. I'm not exactly sure if it's because they don't have the info or the IGL isn't able to find a gap, but because of it, you just have individual players going out of their way to take ill-advised gunfights simply due to the fact that nothing else is happening in the round. Just saying that Nothing's happening. I have to go for this kill. Whether or not there's a player behind this corner or not, I have to make a move because we're not doing anything else.
When I saw the site choice for Akron, I thought, oh, there must have been a mistake. They can't be. Top floor surely can't be open. They played it last round. Nope. They've just been defending top floor so well on their mid floor sites that not a single gunfight has come through on site when it's been down on the first floor. Akron on their top floor holds have just been so spectacular that, again, it looked like they've been defending second floor for the past 4 rounds. But instead, this round, they're going back up to second, and God, Cumberland just need to change something up, and a change does come through. They have, oh my God, I forgot their name.
Sens?
Flubber. Sens. Yeah.
Ah, I got it.
Flubber.
Flubber?
And Osa. Yeah, that was the original like leaked like
Really?
beta name for Sens was
Wow.
Flubber, I'm pretty sure.
That's crazy. Yeah, and I don't necessarily hate. Okay, never mind. I hate that little. Actually, I love that. Using that drone to kind of bait out JetCon. Rifa is going to punish him for that. But the problem now is the entirety of this execution utility is used to try and force this bomb down, and just one simple drone bait isn't going to be enough to win this. The entirety of this execution just comes down to whether or not they can get this bomb down.
Oh, stars. They know about the plant going down, and the C4 comes through Norway, dead on the ground. And great opening for Cumberland, and great pressure already. Another kill for Kosa, or sorry, for Rifa. Norway with a claymore, and things just go from bad to worse. I was about to talk about how Akron were fighting back really well, but instead, things just continue to get better for Cumberland. Finally, they have a great start to the round, and it seems like they're not letting it slip. Utility keeping Jobu in place. Behind that Sens wall, he's not able to swing through because he isn't able to see. But the swing comes in from Kosa instead. Spoonman down on the ground, Case down as well, and Tangley also hitting the deck, meaning it's effectively a 2 versus 2. Finally able to get that res back up. Man advantage now for Cumberland as Tangley Tree and Prone Stars outside of the site window. Putting down yet another Sens wall to be able to take site if they want to. Walking in, Tangley Tree tapping that, but Kosa swings through, getting one. Prone with an immediate trade. But it's a 1 versus 1 right now. Jobu trading himself back into small office. Tucking around the corner with the shotgun. Prone Stars either needs to clear this directly and walk into a shotgun or go for something else. But a pre-fire misses by just a few pixels. And Jobu swinging out gets the shotgun blast. And a round that looked so good for Cumberland and even looked so winnable all the way until the end still slips away from them.
One problem that I talked about in that early half before we got into the game is not playing default. Cumberland, it really is important, especially on this attack, to try and bring something new every round. Sure, they brought something new, but they also brought a strat that I played the first day the rework came out in ranked. That is a default plant that everybody knows 10 times out of 10. As soon as you hear that fire from the Capital bolt go off, that Osa shield put down, all you need is a C4 and they're gone. Didn't time the runaway correctly, losing that, and then forcing the plant down in the exact same position in front of head holes. It doesn't get easier than that for Akron to just swing and kill a player. And I'm not trying to raise my voice too much. I'm not trying to sound too hard, but it's these consistent and very simple mistakes for Cumberland. And it's just allowing for Akron to get these easy situations to win the rounds.
Run out after run out after run out for Akron has led to an adaptation for Cumberland. Nope, never mind. I was supposed to talk about the Nomad, but I cursed it. Instead, they're going yet again for an info operator on Spoonman, but it's quite a different one. Instead of the Lion, instead of something that's very global, it's something that you have to kind of use like a Capital bolt for info in the Grim. As far as Akron, after that switch, I'm kind of expecting more runouts, expecting much more of the same, and although, yes, that is an adaptation for Cumberland, I really don't think that's what they need right now. They've had relatively okay info. They have been able to use the Capital bolts to quite good effect, and their opening picks haven't been the real problem. It's been transitioning that and not throwing it away once it comes down to the actual execute.
this early round is going to be very important for Cumberland, whether they want it or not. A majority of the rounds due to part from Akron are won because they force these gunfights so early on. A phenomenal run out from Plexos is able to get rid of Prone Stars. He is able to work a little bit of that vertical, but with Cumberland losing that first initial pick, now losing the Monty, he won another run out! Akron is not taking their foot off the gas in Cumberland. They have no answer for this aggression.
Cumberland will be kicking themselves for swapping off of the Nomad, because that would have perfectly countered exactly what we saw. Instead, Akron are just allowed free reign, and although it is actually a 3 versus 5, Spoonman cuts it down. I was about to talk about the low HP on Tangly Tree, but instead it gets evened out just a little bit. Tangly Tree's still just so low that if somebody sneezes on him, he is dead. But for the moment, they still sit at just a single-man deficit.
And now they have a little bit more time. The good thing for Cumberland is they still have a minute to try and drone, but Space eventually is going to finish off Tangly Tree. Now Spoonman and Rifa just completely alone, and now it's all up to the Ash.
Rifa has been good for quite a few opening kills and has been the bright spot for Cumberland, but it's a 1 versus 4. It's yet another round where we see Cumberland just absolutely walk away with it, and you've got to say, it's really from those runouts that it seemed like Cumberland expected initially. They went, I hate to keep harping on it like you were talking about, but, I mean, they expected exactly what Akron were bringing out. A nice shot onto Kosa evens it out into a... It doesn't even it out. Closes up the gap just a little bit into a 1 versus 3, but it's still just so unwinnable off of mistakes that, again, they were expecting. They knew that Akron were going to run out.
Wow.
They had the exact counter, but the round still just is Akron's through and through.
What a phenomenal shot from JetCon there. And also a phenomenal way to kind of summarize the entirety of that round. And this is a problem because I'm being a little bit harsh on Cumberland because I've casted quite a bit of their games, not only this semester, but last semester also. And these aren't simple mistakes that they were making. And they allowed for Border to go through this map pool well knowing that there was a good chance that Akron was going to choose it. Now that they have, they don't seem prepared. A lot of these rounds just doing very default takes. And even with default takes that they probably have done time after time again, they're still moving so slow. And that has been the biggest problem. If they are able to move through these rounds with a lot faster of a pace, even if they're relatively simple and default takes, then that's better. The reason that Akron are able to get these runouts is because Cumberland is so slow on the drone info, gathering it and just essentially sitting like cones, allowing for these runouts to have success with no real flank watch.
Another adaptation for Cumberland, but we see it onto a Twitch.
10 seconds to go.
I don't know that that's really going to work out all that well. Yes, it is a hard counter to a lot of utility out of Akron, but even still, I don't think it's really the utility that's been winning Akron rounds. It's not like Cumberland have been taking space really well, walking into a Fenrir and then just losing a gunfight off of that. It's not like they've, well, they did have that round where they tossed 2 Selmas into Wamai's, but that wasn't really the Wamai's fault. They really need to be plugging the holes that Akron are showing to them, instead of trying to fight utility work that I don't think is the biggest problem for Cumberland.
Yeah, I mean, and I really do want to give props to Akron, a phenomenal job. Almost every round, there is at least one defender that has a lot of anti-utility, or anti-info utility per se, whether it be a mute or bringing in a Mozzie, making sure that this early round just droning, trying to clear this position is a headache. That mute over by Passport allowed for Jobu to just stay here completely unbeknownst on his exact position.
Cybertruck Hollow just running them over, but Tangly Tree able to get a trade, keeping it as close a man count as you possibly can have. 4 versus 4 for Cumberland, and at this point, they've actually gotten themselves a lot of space towards the mid-floor, but the vertical absolutely kills them. Plexios through an angle takes down Prone. It seemed like the calls for Cumberland were coming out, hey, we might be able to just take horizontally, but instead Cumberland forced into a vertical take, and they're forced directly into the crossfires of Akron, kill after kill after kill. And Tangly, the one to be able to find the trade early on in this round, now finds himself as the last alive. He has Case and he's close to sight, but info given away to Akron, drops coming through, and it just seems completely unwinnable. Swing coming through, looking for anything towards sight. Well aware of JetCon on the other side of that doorway. Forced to reposition, find any sort of space, but JetCon just shuts him out before a run out would have come for him either way. Flawless defensive half for Akron.
I mean, it really is hard. And I talked about how there's only so much you can do when you as a team, speaking about Cumberland here, is having such a bad game. On the other side of the table, Akron is having one of the best games I saw. Yesterday, sure, it was a 2-0, only a 7-4 and a 7-2, but that first map was a real struggle. Also had a little bit of difficulties on Clubhouse for the second map. But today, I mean, 6-0 obviously speaks for flaws, but you have players showing up round in and round out. Even JetCon having a very slow first half in the previous 2 rounds. Obviously, those flicks, especially onto the vent window, the wall bang inside of construction, really shows that even when you have a player that was slowing up, keep in mind, a couple of rounds ago, JetCon was 1-3. Throughout the previous 3 rounds, he is now 8-3. There is nothing you can do. Even if you try and cut off a head of Akron, just like, I don't even remember the name of the monster, another head will grow. And that head right now is JetCon in Cumberland. They are just not prepared for this match.
Oh my god. Usually I'd be right on that, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The like 6-headed serpent.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It is.
And another brutal thing is a 6-0 half. Perfect defensive half on border. That's, I mean, you could have like a 6-0 attacking half on Skyscraper, and that would be more brutal. God, there were very few things in any of those rounds that looked in anywhere good for Cumberland. Rifa has been finding opening picks, and he's the only player on Cumberland that's even at all as far as AD. That's kind of it.
It is really difficult sites, and I think we were talking about how this is relatively an attacking-sided map, and Akron gets 6 rounds on the least favored side, and Akron is probably one of, actually no, they are the best attacking team in Collegiate. You could also argue that you compare it to T2, T3 teams. JetCon with an entry, it is kind of like reading the same book over and over and over, and then on top of that, Prone Stars is completely isolated. The best chance he has in this position is to either run away with his life or maybe get 1 kill, but even with that, he will be immediately traded. And it just continues to snowball into worse and worse problems for Cumberland.
He's delaying out a lot of good time, though. Info coming through for Akron is eventually going to give them the space, but it's a minute and 15 and a man disadvantage, and he almost finds a pick back instead. 2 kills for Akron, although one of them is traded by Spoonman, another from Rifa. This is getting closer and closer to winnable as Spoonman finds another pick, and all of a sudden it seems like it's back in the hands of Cumberland until Space finds a pick towards Rifa and yet another onto Spoonman. It looked winnable for a second, but once again it just slips out of their hands, and a flawless map for Akron to start off this best of 3 that might not go all that long.
You know, I talked about how this was still going to be a 2-0, but it was going to be relatively close. 30 minutes for one map is not close in my book whatsoever. And the Cumberland train looks like it's starting to near its exit in this playoffs. They lost last weekend in CR6, and yet again coming up against Akron, it looks like their story also will end here in NECC.
Well, there is still one other map potentially, hopefully 2. And even if they do end up losing this, it is the upper stage of a double bracket. But either way, we'll toss to a quick break and then get back into another map where maybe Cumberland will have some of those issues solved, hopefully.
Can't do it. Help!
Help me, Lord. Help me get over this loss.
I can't breathe.
Yeah, I can't breathe. I'm so upset. I can't breathe. Stop. You knock on wood so they go to heaven. It's like a lucky. Hey, get the stick.
Yeah,
Hey, do you the meat stick?
yeah, I got it.
Hey, just hold tight for a second. They're moving the casket. Just hold tight.
Yeah, that's no worries. I got it.
What exactly is plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. 100% pure protein-packed power in a stick. I want Wenzel's Farm. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. What exactly is a meat substitute or plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. The kind you find at Wenzel's Farm and the only kind they use. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked right here in the heartland of America. Wenzel's Farm offers 14 flavors of mouth-watering protein-packed power in a stick, except no substitute. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. Looking for something to power your day? Then look no further than Wenzel's Farm Snack Sticks. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked, these protein-packed power sticks deliver truly sustainable energy. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. You work hard and play hard. You need real fuel to power your day. Not some tofu stuffed rice cake or plant-based meat substitute. No, you need honest-to-goodness, homegrown, protein-packed power in a stick. You need Wenzel's Farm. Quality cuts of meat handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked for a great-tasting snack that delivers real energy. Power up and put the smack down on whatever your day brings with Wenzel's Farm. Real meat for real life.
What do you make of this up here? Just showed up in the yard a couple days
Is a
ago.
dog been digging in there?
I don't think so, dude. That goes way down in there. Seriously, did you just lose your meat stick?
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's something in there, dude. Just leave it.
Are you kidding me?
We'll just head to the house. Just leave it.
The hell with that.
Ah, yeah, there's something in there. Ah!
Want one?
Yeah. Thank you.
It was worth it.
Oh, man, this is incredible.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Hey, man, grab me a meat stick. I think I can reach it if I just a little more. Just let me go a little. I can't. Just a little more. I almost got it. Careful! Oh, God. No. Come on, just reach. Reach. Just grab my hand. I can't hold it. Grab my hand.
Give me the meat stick. This other hand's closer. The one with the stick is. Oh. What am I supposed to say?
It doesn't matter. He's dead. He ain't listening to you anyway.
I'm hungry.
No. Put it away. I can't watch it. Oh, crap. Just reach in. You gotta pull it. Just grab it. Just take it out of his hand. You just can't. What do you mean you can't?
He won't let go.
What do you mean he won't let go? He's dead.
Help me. Get in there. No, just hold on.
Make him let go of it. No, I got you covered. Just go in for a hug. Go and get on in there. It's a bad loss. Yeah, hug him up. Just reach. Hug him up.
He's breathing. I think it's on the other side.
Go.
I can't.
Just-
I can't do it.
Help me.
And we're back. Quick break, quick map. A 7-0 start for Akron. And here, Irish and Goose, we're kind of just hoping it gets a little bit better for Cumberland.
And I don't think it's going to. We're going to Clubhouse, that, again, is a favorite for Akron, and a map that they just won 7-2 yesterday against a team that beat Cumberland. And it is really just all not looking in the favor. And as the map pick from Cumberland, I'm confused. I honestly don't understand the idea behind this, especially since not only are they um playing on a map that they lost just previously against Akron that beat the team that beat I don't know. I really just don't understand why we're going to Clubhouse.
You know, there's a lot of things you don't understand. I'm taking the devil's advocate position. I'm thinking
Oh,
that because, like you talked about, there's a recent VOD of Akron playing this map, and it's maybe something that's very counter-stratable for Cumberland, something that they see and they're like, hey, one, we're comfortable on this map. Two, we can adapt on this map. And three, we've seen plays very recently from this team. I am not just hoping, but you know what? I'll put my reputation on it. I'll say, you know what? I think we will see a much better showing. I think we'll have an infinitely better showing from Cumberland. I think they're getting at least a round.
okay. You know what? You know what? That may happen. That may that may happen, Irish.
I will
You
stake
know,
my reputation on it.
you know, ever since you made the call a year ago that VP was going to be good, you didn't give any context of like what event or
Well,
the time
I had a
span.
dream.
You had a dream, and then they were good for one event, and then going to SI. They were going good in the group stage, and then they got a playoffs. Didn't go too good. Cumberland, they're not doing good map one. Maybe they could get around here. Starting on attack though is really worrying, and it puts me in the seat that we could perhaps maybe see yet another 6-0 to start the half.
See, fortunately for Cumberland, I did not have a dream that literally pictured them winning this league. So hopefully they have a chance in this game. Again, like I said, I expect them to do a little bit better because this is their map. And although they start on attack, you know, the third site choice maybe is just slightly more winnable. Yeah, another Demos ban. That's
Yeah, you
huh.
don't you don't need a ban Deimos on this map. I think especially because Clubhouse is so relatively default that you can
Every
kind of
game months ago.
predict you can kind of predict the positions of defenders. But I think it's kind of a situation where I don't even think Akron needs the Deimos. I don't think that Cumberland can do anything. Actually, I don't think. I know that Cumberland can't do anything in game. There's not going to be one huge change that's going to turn the entire tide of this matchup. I think coming into this, Cumberland were not one only just not that prepared, especially on border, but the fact that we're going to Clubhouse is just a mismatch. That is a, in my opinion, mistake from Cumberland. I think they're going to be punished for. Maybe, hell, maybe they just did a lot of VOD reviewing. They did a lot of good scrims. They come into this and they surprise me. And I will eat my words. And I honestly, I am praying that Cumberland can make me eat my words because I want to see them do good. This isn't their only chance they get to go down to lowers, but you definitely do want to try and get at least a couple.
Yeah, Cumberland is hoping in this matchup that they will not be barbecue chicken. Absolutely free for the taking from Akron, but if last map is anything to go on, it is a mighty high hill to climb for Cumberland. Starting off in this game, they are once again on the attack, but this is not statistically favored. Again, like we were talking about, it's not going to be easy for them to start racking up rounds, but they really, really need to break the momentum of Akron. Akron already on a very, very loose lurk from multiple position space, still setting up those castle barriers for a semi-SSG roam on this basement site. And Cumberland already taking space towards the top floor clear.
You know what's really sad is you'll say SSG roam, and the fact that you're alluding to 5 years ago, majority of people watching will not understand what you mean because we are so old. Specifically, you.
Wow.
SSG roam in current day means Ashen just running around killing people. This doesn't look like an SSG roam per se because I'm sorry, Irish, but no one aside from me and you remembers that.
Wow. I'm the Larry David meme where I'm just staring into space. Already a great opening for Cumberland. Prone Stars instead, not Rifo once again, just running around on that Ash. It seems like they have a little bit of depth towards their kill potential in this map, although it's quickly closed out by Plexios as he drops back to site. A little bit of a bait on this Monty, trying to get him to walk into another defender. But Cumberland are not giving it away so easily. They're seemingly very well aware that one is Bathroom because that Monty is just delaying. Time ticking down still works in the favor of Akron.
Trying to do anything in a lurk from Zosa inside a bathroom. Again, the lack of consistent droning cost Cumberland pick. And Akron, they're just fighting. They're making sure that Cumberland lose all of their men on this first floor. And that has been one of the biggest problems that a lot of teams can't necessarily deal with.
Cumberland almost finding ahead of Jobu. 50 seconds left. Spoonman still on the third floor, or sorry, on the second floor of what is a basement site. They still not only need to transition this top floor into a mid floor, but then transition that into a site hit. And with 30 seconds still left on the clock, it seems so undoable, especially with Kosa just holding that bathroom position down. He's able to find 3 from there. The first being the Monty. I thought Cumberland knew, and by all accounts, they really should have known about Kosa.
I'm trying I'm trying my best not to be rude. I've had a history of not phrasing things nicely. I think one thing that would help Cumberland have better early rounds is droning more. And again, it is I'm only really harsh
that's
on
really
teams. I'm only really harsh on teams when I've seen them do better. I've seen Cumberland do better. I'm not exactly sure what happened in their best of 3 over in CR6 before they eventually fell short. They played better. It's kind of a situation. I don't know if it's that they see the UA at the end of the player names and they're kind of getting in their heads. But it's a situation where if you just drone more consistently, then these early rounds won't be just shutdowns from Akron, and they won't be as easy as we've previously seen.
It's also one of the things that we do need to take into account as well is the sheer impact that a 7-0 start gets for Akron. Especially, we even saw on that last map, they started getting a lot more rowdy. They were going for runouts to start the map, but it just got more and more and more, and having that kind of scrim effect of realizing, oh, we can just win this map no matter what we do, and then they start doing crazy stuff because they can get away with it, and things just go from bad to worse, because it's not just a team playing well and respecting what you're doing, they're disrespecting you and also still winning. It's like back in the day, yet another thing that'll date me a little bit, like people always used to talk about how Mirage was really good in scrims but just couldn't translate it to actual game day. It's like that, except they do win on game day, and in scrims they can just kind of run around and do exactly what they are doing, swing everything and shut down Rifa before he even has a chance to get any damage towards Akron, and the fall off is immediate. Space still disrespecting as he finally drops back to site. It seemed like he could have gotten even more rowdy there as well.
Yeah, and I really do love that, I guess you say maturity from Akron to not overplay this extension into cash, retreating back down to the bomb site, not giving Cumberland an easy opportunity to get an answer back, maybe even find a man advantage. And because of that, it forces Cumberland into a very discomfortable execution, especially with no real utility to push out these players. Sure, you can, poke your head in with Monty, but he's not going to do anything unless you're able to get rid of one of these players.
Kosa's still downstairs. The first floor pool table could activate for a lurk later on. That's given that the team doesn't fall apart on site, as Prone Stars with a initial pick. And Plexios dropping down, looking for a C4, but only damage to be found on the side of Cumberland. And Norway still remaining alive is a huge save for them. Still time delaying out, and Norway has been on this doorway position for so long, feeding info for his team. And although it works out for one pick onto JetCon, the rest of the team still needs a transition. Have full control of this roof position, But Logi Hatch is opening up at 50 seconds left. Yes, that's another point of entry, but eventually they actually do need to enter the building. 40 seconds on the clock, and they've been pressuring towards site for so long, but when they finally start swinging, space is there for the cutoff. Another pick for Akron, man advantage for them. Cumberland still gaining info. 25 seconds left. It seems like they know where most of the positions are for this defense, but it's still a problem of transitioning this until Spoonman finds a pick onto Kosa. Great pick. It also gives him Logi, but he drops into a frost mat. Cumberland still finding picks though, and now in a 3 versus 1, and they know where the last alive is. Norway putting that case down, and Tangly Tree giving Cumberland their first round.
The prediction! The prophecy has been foretold. Cumberland, they've gone their one round, but now they sit on a throne. They sit on an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to break the prophecy and what it foretells of just only one round. Can they get one more? They just get 2 rounds here so they can break that prophecy. They can break what the forefathers had told us. But I do believe that is a round that probably should have been won a lot earlier. Having that Monty, the control, not even having a player inside of Jim after you got that kill on the bomb is a situation where Monty could just landed that bomb. That's a round that Akron very easily could have won, especially with that player just dropping right into a frost mat on Logi Hatch. But again, because Akron played way too over-aggressive, just kind of exposing their bodies on that bomb site to those crossfires that were being held over by highway by Cumberland, they were punished for it. And again, I think it's a problem. I think it's a mistake that Akron will not make.
So we talked about the discipline of Akron in that round. We have to talk about the discipline of Cumberland. They saw the time ticking down and down and down, the clock getting less than a minute, but they just held their positions. And in that round, it was very much the right decision. Like you talked about, Akron just got a little bit too ahead of themselves and swung way too many fights that they really didn't need to. But like I was talking about during the round, it's because they've been allowed to get away with it. Cumberland taking a moment to slow down, use their info, and let Akron overswing into them was exactly what they needed to tie things up 1-1 here. Like you said, maybe this is going to be something that, you know, Akron aren't going to make the same mistake time after time after time. But if they do slow down and if they do stop swinging every single angle, that's still a benefit for Cumberland because it means that Akron are finally respecting them on the attack.
That's an opportunity that Cumberland really wants. They want that opportunity for them to slow down to get an opportunity. And Exos, again, just over-swinging. And eventually, after time, hitting their head on a brick wall 2 rounds in a row. Getting that opening pick. We're not in a row, per se, but getting that opening pick. 2 rounds now. Space eventually able to get that refrag, but a Maverick for a Bandit, that's an even trade on top of that. Monty able to clear a little bit of space inside of Garage. They're still going to need to find an entry point. Tangly Tree will not be the only answer. He cannot Capital Bolt and then kill a player on bottom Garage and Raptors, especially with the extension all the way over into Break. So they're going to need to attack from multiple different points, and Refuzz with 2 is the answer that they need.
That, and also Tangler Tree working his way into Garage means that he avoids the very late angle opened up by Kosa. Kosa as well, stuck in lobby because of that. He was looking for a freebie, but Cumberland, at least in this round, is not giving it away. Man advantage, all of Raptors control, and seemingly enough info for them to actually start transitioning this into a site take. The Monty on Raptors as well, and be able to walk through that rotate with absolute impunity. But Kosa not only just finding his way back to a better position, also potentially playing spoiler to this plant. He's set up below with that secondary shotgun to be able to open it up and deny it once time comes. Cumberland, seeing that Akron are giving them respect, seeing that Akron are giving them the entirety of sight, know that there is some sort of trick up Akron's sleeve. So they're taking this time once again to slow down and get even more info, getting a yellow ping on site, but they don't know about below. Opened up directly at Norway's feet, but instead of being able to find a kill, it's just stuck on the ground. Space is said to find the pick. Rifa dropping below, gets one out of Kosa, and it's a 2 versus 1 that's closed out by Norway. And Cumberland for the first time in this matchup, find themselves in the lead.
Cumberland breaking the trend and surprising not only us, but everybody else, getting now 2 rounds in a row. And those are 2 rounds where they just simply bested Akron. I talked about how Akron played really over aggressive. They made a lot of mistakes, but there were mistakes that were forced from Cumberland. Because they got so much control, they just completely allowed for Rifas to get too blindsided, not paying attention to their situational awareness, and because of that, it opened up the entirety of the round. A poor play from the player castle down below, not timing that, allowing for the mute on the bomb site to be completely isolated and give Cumberland the opportunity for a 2 or actually a 3v1. And that's a situation where Akron, you need to play numbers. You need to try to potentially even go for a flank. And it's a round where Akron really didn't try too hard to apply pressure and just allowed for Cumberland to walk over them going into that execution onto the bomb site.
But it wasn't even that much of a misplay from Kosa. Honestly, that play there to go all the way over towards bar and try to find a freebie onto that garage wall is a great play. Because we saw Tangly Tree standing there trying to put a firebolt in, trying to pressure towards Raptors for the majority of that round. And it just so happened that the second that Kosa actually opened up that window was the second that Cumberland 3-2-1'd and walked into garage, finding 2 for the trouble as well. Cumberland, a great round, with great timing that they are completely unaware of, but also doing a great job of working with the time that they are aware of. Once again, they slowed down in that late round to do their due diligence, to get the roam and to get the info on the player on site, as well as to have just enough to be able to rotate once Kosa started pressuring from below. Cumberland looking like a completely different team, and now, once again, for the first time in the lead, it seems like they want to do a very similar thing that they have been doing. Just a Monte clear from opposite side over, and another great opening pick for Cumberland coming in the form of a internet disconnect.
I mean, you know, whether or not it was a kill from them, that player is gone, and he's a very influential player. And also, that C4 goes down with him. And this is going to completely change on how Akron played, because they can't play aggressive. They can't play in the face this very early round. They can't overstay their positions, even though there isn't as heavy of an extension on this first floor, because they don't have that opportunity of an even 5v5 man count. If they lose a very aggressive early on play, then they go down even deeper in that man deficit. You can see 2 players trying their best to potentially bait out a gunfight over by top blue, and they do give Kosa that opportunity, taking Prone Stars off of the board. But the entirety of this attack isn't over by blue, it's by main and kitchen.
They're already pressuring towards site. Yes, the retake is coming in for Akron. Yes, Akron are taking complete control of top floor. That doesn't matter at all if Cumberland are just bearing down on site, and already in the back of it is Norway, 50% on that diffuser. Kills, yes, going towards Akron, but case is secured? 2 versus 3 post-plant now for the attack, and Rifa just clearing up the entirety of the team. Triple kill for him and a quad from blue.
We talked about how in the first map, Rifa was the only player having any effect in the kill department and the entry department. In this round, in this map, it is no different. 3 rounds on the attack, buffering the trend of a 2-4 attacking half for teams. Cumberland making this map pick that was a complete question mark to me. Again, taking the words right out of my mouth, something that I asked, I pleaded for them to do. And this is a problem that I saw yesterday. I talked about how it was still a 7-2 win on Clubhouse for Akron, but there were still a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake of them all was their situational awareness going into the late round when they were trying to take those very aggressive gunfights all at once. In Cumberland, they're taking advantage of that problem against Akron perfectly.
What I really like about that last round, too, for Cumberland is on those first 2 rounds that they won, it seemed like there was a consistent strategy of slowing down the execute, getting to a point where they could enter site, and then slowing down, getting info, letting Akron overswing, but also even if they didn't, just getting info on them so that the push, when it finally happens, you have as much advantage as you possibly can as far as info, as far as positioning, as far as everything else before you finally take the dive and push towards site. For that last round, Cumberland just threw that out the window. If at first if things work, usually the call is, oh, just keep doing this. But they throw things out the window, go for a semi-rush where they clear out enough to just push onto site and avoid the roam that actually worked out well in the early round for Akron. They got opening pick, Akron that is. And then instead of challenging towards that roam, they just booked it down main stairs, got plant down, and won at 2 versus, what was it, 4? It was insane. For Cumberland, they've shown that not only can they just stand up to Akron now after a 0-7, but they can win rounds in so many different ways as well.
And I think one of the biggest factors on why Akron is completely stumped and why they continue to lose bodies and bleed in this early round is because Cumberland is simply just moving a lot faster. You don't get that opportunity of getting an easy 1v1, getting that kill and running away, even if Akron is able to get the opening kill, because Cumberland is moving a lot faster in this early rounds. There's usually more of a chance of a player in position to get that refrag. A perfect bandit trick from Exos is going to waste one of those exothermic charges. Still have Ace on the board to do a little bit of work in those can openers, so it won't be a complete do or die situation, especially since the ban is now gone. They're going to be able to get that wall open, but a majority of this round is going to be whether or not Akron decide how hard they want to try to force the effort to get this opening pick up.
The amount of delay out of Akron's defense, but they're staying aggressive off the back of it. It seemed like initially they were going to do the exact same thing of just pressuring out, delaying time, and then dropping back, but Space overstaying his welcome. I thought that maybe it would work out for Akron, but instead Cumberland just seemed to be on top of it. Another opening for them. In Space, one of the players for Akron that's been doing quite well, is shut down by the much hotter gun of Rifa, sitting at 8 and 3.
That's another problem for Akron, is they don't really have that player, that spearhead that's able to shut down those opening engagements. Kosa and Space having relatively good games, but it's just relatively good. It's not fantastic. And Akron, they're faltering at this pressure. They're not trying to push back. There's nothing really stopping or slowing down this onslaught from Cumberland, and they're just hoping that a player overswings, that player being Jekan, hoping that he can try to find anything. But the one factor that is in the favor of Akron is Cumberland's overall info game is a little bit spotty right now. You'll be taking that time to throw a couple more drones over this point in the map to try and get a little bit more info on these late round defender positions.
And another pick for Cumberland. Akron are also just kind of all grouped up. Instead of one of them going for a late round flank, knowing that Cumberland will delay out the clock, it seems like they're a lot less confident about that, because Cumberland confidently walking into sight, and another kill for Cumberland. Potentially a flawless round ruined by Jekan as he takes Norway down, but and another kill for him are just consolation prizes as Cumberland pick up yet another round on their attack.
Wow, Cumberland, even after the timeout from Akron, 4 rounds to start off their attack, Akron still not able to really have any answer against this aggression. I talked about how they move so fast. We talked about how Space overstayed his welcome on top red. If that happened last map, it would have been a situation where, because Cumberland moved so slow, he would have had the opportunity to fall back down, take a gunfight, miss a couple of shots, and then say, hey, I played my time, I've overstayed my due here, and I need to go back down to the bomb site. But because they're moving so fast, he wasn't necessarily in a position expecting Rifas to just run up red, getting that kill. And this change of pace and momentum is completely stumping Akron, as taking away that capability for them to read into how Cumberland is playing on this attack.
Last round on attack for Cumberland, and a last chance to continue this momentum before they have to swap on to defense. I don't expect that they'll have any issues on defense, seeing the dominance that we've seen out of their attack, but still, it's something to keep in mind that if Cumberland have gotten into this flow state of just doing so well on attack, a little bit of a disruption could potentially throw them off. But we still have one more round before that happens, and we still have another chance for Cumberland to just keep pushing Akron to the limit. A good amount of roam for Akron, but it's a pretty shallow roam, actually. They're dropping immediately back, and Kosa sitting on central stairs, but that's really all.
That is really all that they're going to be doing for now. Again, Lexus teasing the idea of a roam by top blue, but simply just baiting. He's wanting a Cumberland player to take a gunfight with him, apply a little bit of pressure. If he can get a pick, that's fantastic. But if he needs to just fall back down those stairs to oil, or bottom blue, then he's fine with that. Kosa also getting really aggressive early on. His position here simply to just shoot drones. This is an overall roam game that isn't meant to apply a lot of pressure. It isn't meant to force Cumberland to play into these players. If they can, trip up, find an attacker off guard and get a pick, that's fantastic, but it isn't a do or die situation for them.
That's also the respect out of Akron. Instead of having 3 players on the roam and just kind of running directly into Cumberland's faces, it's 1. And also, he seems very willing to drop back, although after I say that, he shoots a drone and just walks up on Cumberland instead. Kosa is trying to do exactly what he did on the first map and just disrespect Cumberland. But they're not giving it away. Drone after drone after drone, and instead of just feeding the flames, it seems like the info is good. It forces Kosa into a very uncomfortable position where he's then wallbanged from. Cumberland doing their due diligence and redroning the same area 5 times until it finally gives them a pick, and they double down. Spooman with yet another, and a 2-man advantage, as the Akron players on site are now the last alive in a 3 versus 5.
Still an opportunity, Akron. They need a pick. They need anything to stop this momentum. They cannot allow for Cumberland to go into this execution with 5 men. The good thing for Akron, though, is they've wasted so much of that drone economy that there isn't really any late round info for Cumberland to work off of.
Monty rotating around outside, either towards dirt or towards this kitchen drop, but the hatch is still closed. For Norway, that's not really going to be operable because not only is it closed, but it's also kaided off, and space with that kaid still has a C4 in pocket. Like you were talking about, time is getting just a little bit low for Cumberland, so although they did get off to a good start, things are starting to look a little bit dicey. Prone finds a pick from the utility room from blue space to be able to find a trade. 2 kills for him, snapping back onto Cumberland, and now it's just a 2 versus 2. Norway, late round, forced into doing anything as Plexios finds a kill, and now Norway with the case, the last alive in time. It's 0 for a second round of Akron as they breathe a sigh of relief before side swap.
It took a lot. It took just pulling around out of a magic hat as if it was a rabbit at a magician show. But Akron, based off of the lack of consistent time management from Cumberland, just kind of dwindling that clock a little bit too much for their own liking, eventually forcing them into very ill-advised gunfights. Again, I talked about how good Kosa did at just simply shooting drone after drone that early round, making sure that when it came down to the execution, there were no drone. There was no late round info. And going into that execution, Cumberland completely blind, and that gave the opportunity for Akron to trip up those players, to take those gunfights without Cumberland having a 100% idea of where they were playing. But now Akron, onto their attack, has to do exactly what Cumberland did, if better, if they want to win in regulation.
Usually for the attack, you'd say, okay, trading a bunch of roams for an opening pick and then doubling down, having a 2-man advantage with a Monty, and also vertical, and also so many spots to actually enter the site from. That's a great trade, but the thing is for Cumberland and for their attack, once again, they use that late round to drone so incredibly often that taking that tool out of their belt was just so strong. It's something that usually isn't the win condition for a defensive team, but against Cumberland, it seems like Akron read into that very well. Now they are on their attack. The drone economy is going quite well for them, only losing 2 drones thus far, spending a lot of time establishing pressure on different parts of the map as well. It seems like they want to take the entirety of opposite side before transitioning it over, and with a buck to be able to pressure from first floor as well once the site take actually does happen.
You can see just how cautious Akron is moving. Not really a whole lot of presence. Cumberland over on this extension in CCTV. Akron, they have somewhat realized that. No players inside of Cash, just trying to potentially kill a player that isn't on the roam. A little bit of phantom pressure being applied to Akron. I'm not exactly sure why. The pressure from that first half is really being felt, but a horrible run out from Prone Stars will give Jobu that opening pick, and those are easy opportunities that, as Cumberland, you cannot afford to give Akron.
Truly unfortunate start for Cumberland, but a great angle for Spoonman. Could potentially be the trade, but just a few shots into the shoulder before Space is very well aware. He respins and gets the kill? What? How do you give that up, Spoonman? Another kill found for Akron, and it just goes from bad to worse. Seems like the dominance we saw from their attack is just that, just dominance, but only on attack. Rifa now understanding that his team is in the firm disadvantage, forced into a swing, and Norway on his gives his life away. Rifa not able to find the pick onto Jobu, getting a lot of damage, but finally finds it, only for long enough to be traded out by Space. Great opening attack for Akron, and showing that they might take for themselves the advantage once again. So that's not even a bad chow. He's sitting in a pixel angle on a shield. That's just insane.
He's just better. He's just better. And that's a round where I talked about in the first half that Akron kind of was feeling a little bit of phantom pressure. They were holding that flank. They were kind of, peeking those angles, expecting a defender to flank them. But after 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and a minute off the board, they realized that there's nobody on the run. There was nobody flanking us. They're all around the bomb site. And then they just hit the go button with enough on-site info. They were able to challenge those players. I'm not even going to say ill-advised. That was just, Space absolutely being nasty, being better in that situation. And because you give those isolated picks, whether or not they were good gunfights to force, you lost them, allowing for Akron to snowball advantage after advantage, and there was no ever real pushback from Cumberland. And to be honest, I would have loved to flank them, but they simply didn't do it.
10 seconds remaining.
Cumberland. They had the advantage for a good chunk of this map. After a round like that, it could potentially slip away from them. We saw, once again, if you guys weren't here, a 7-0 last map for Akron. So going into this map, it seemed like the roles had just completely swapped. Aggression still out from Cumberland, and a great run out from Prone Stars. Instead of them being immediately punished, it gets an opening pick for Cumberland. We talked about them maybe needing to fight back before Akron find the momentum once again. That's exactly how you do it.
Yeah, getting rid of the ace is just going to add so much utility off the board for Akron. Sure, you still do have those Habanas, but you're not going to have that ace on the board to safely open up those walls around the bomb site, that being church and or blue wall. So it's going to make that overall execution really difficult. They also have some sort of an idea that there is a Cumberland defender on this top floor, but they don't know where! And Rifa has the better info. He's able to get yet a second one, but now they know exactly where he is. Rifa also identifying that they know where he is, hearing the stampede of the Akron players, and he's simply going to try to rotate back down. These players dropping the hash, he's completely cut off.
Jetcon looking for the trade onto Rifa. Yellow ping is coming through with a fight going towards Jetcon, although it does get a little bit not pretty. Still goes towards Akron. But even with that kill, Akron is still sitting at a man disadvantage. Players dropping back down towards first floor as well. The entirety of Cumberland's defense is now bunkered up, and with the man advantage, that's all they really need now.
Attackers have recovered their defeat.
Akron, maybe reading into that, will start taking mid floor and start working this vertical area, but they only have one more breach charge to do so.
The good thing for Akron is they have the utility and the time to work these hatches. Cade trick perhaps could go off, but Cade all the way inside of church, so that will not be an opportunity, at least for now. Working this vert also with the breach charges, and they have the setup. They just need to get the info on the site and try and potentially isolate a player or two to work that man advantage to at least an even out man count. First player that they're going to need to at least to attempt to get out is Spoonman, but with no throwable utility aside from a flashbang, there isn't really anything that they can use to push him out.
No info either. The drone that could have spotted him up on that corner was shot up by one of his teammates, so info also not going towards the benefit of Akron either. We talked about drone economy, and they have 4 left. One of those, I think, is from a dead player watching that red stairs, so it's only really 3 active drones for them, potentially even feeding them info at all. But as time ticks down, Plexios is forced to just walk through and tank a ton of damage towards dirt. 15 seconds left. Vertical is trying to be used, but the smoke is actually going to get the kill on Plexios. A drop comes through, but an immediate trade out of Spoonman. They had absolutely no idea as he rips them apart.
I talked about how in the first round, Akron did a phenomenal job at gathering info and then reacting off that info. Second round, though, they had little to no info whatsoever. Yet another aggressive run out from Prone Stars. That time around, instead of losing the opening engagement, he is able to win it on an ace. Get rid of that utility. And then on top of that, no real drone info on Rifas with the Mozzie playing inside of CCTV. A very well-timed swing is able to get him not only a second kill for the team, but then eventually once he's trade, allowing for Cumberland to go into that execution with a man advantage. And sure, you had the utility, you had the time, but because you shot out so many drones just simply trying to clear that one player out, you weren't able to use that info on the bomb site. And that's eventually where Akron fell short.
One thing that I do find a little bit interesting, I was thinking, Norway, that name is very familiar. I don't know whether you frequent the R6 Pro League subreddit, but Norway is actually a very, very, very active member in that. And I was like, hold on, I recognize that name. He is a #1 FaZe fan. So he was very, very happy after that SI win. He's a fan of the org and the team as well.
Oh, okay. No, you know what? FaZe has been able to come up not only in Siege, but also as an org as a whole. Cumberland also has been on the come up these past couple rounds. The good thing for Akron, though, is that Cumberland still needs to win 2 rounds. One at least on that master bed site. You don't exactly need to win CCTV if you are eventually allowed to go back down to the basement. Akron's still in a very good position, especially we talked about how aggressive early on these Cumberland defenders have been gone 3 rounds in a row with a run out from a player, and eventually it is resulted in Akron getting that opening pick and taking a zombie off the board in the first 30 seconds. So much utility off of the board, just like Cumberland did to Akron in the round before, and because of that, Cumberland also be playing relatively more passive.
That is a very tough pill to swallow for Cumberland, like you talked about, and it just goes from bad to worse as Plexios walks in and finds yet another. Not nearly as bad from a utility standpoint, as those castle barriers have all been put down, and it's not necessarily bad to lose him because he's one of the worst guns on defense, but still, losing any member right now, Plexios just continues to get kill after kill after kill. He's just walking around stockroom, and Cumberland are swinging him, looking to retake that space. Still, Akron sitting in the driver's seat, especially in this round.
Trying to find anything whatsoever. Tangly Tree completely isolated. Looks like they have some kind of idea of his position. Jobu also with the kill. Now it's Tangly Tree. He needs to get an ace to win this round.
Would it be doable for him? And nope. Decon with a flawless round, and yet another round for Akron. And it seems like an attacking-sided clubhouse. Really a 4-2 half starting off for Cumberland on their attack. And now things are evened up. Or actually not quite evened up. I forgot that Cumberland had gotten that 5th round, but just 1 round now separates Akron from Cumberland.
And it's also very eerily similar to the first half of Clubhouse that we've been watching right here, right now. Akron having the exact same formula of Cumberland getting really aggressive in these early engagements, and then being able, backed off of just playing a little bit more passive, not running without watching your jump outs and spawn peaks, but also having that info to punish them. That's exactly what Cumberland did on their own attack against Akron. Now Akron's doing it against them. And the problem is, there's now 3 rounds where we haven't really seen Cumberland change up their playstyle. Something that I talked about on map 1, even before map 1, that Cumberland couldn't do the exact same thing, whether it was an overall playstyle or a defensive setup. If you allow for Akron to play with the exact same blueprint, they're going to be able to predict what you're going to do before.
10 seconds remaining.
Cumberland looking for an answer back. They started off this map very, very, very well, but now Akron looking to potentially even it back up and close it out with a 2-0 victory. Either way, like we've been talking about, this is the upper finals for both of these teams, so in a double elimination bracket. So yes, it is playoffs. Yes, it is a very important game, but it's not a you lose, you're out, all or nothing type situation. For both of these teams, you can potentially see them both back in the grand finals, and especially with the back and forth that we've seen out of this map, that might be a very good matchup.
C4 trying to find anything. Norway, he isn't able to find that Maverick. Just wasted utility from him, and you can see necessarily kind of how scared Cumberland is playing on this bomb site. Playing the exact same position inside of CCTV that they just did a couple of rounds ago, and it's a very worrying site. Prone Stars, though, is adding so much value to this defense so far, getting so much info. Again, it's going to come down to how him and the rest of his team reacts off of this, and Space catching Norway, looking the complete opposite way, trying to trick a wall that was already being opened. Also wastes one of his impact charges. You got the opening pick. You also have that pulse. If Akron are able to consistently watch that, I think it shouldn't be a problem, though.
Now start for Cumberland, and it just gets worse as Space is able to find Rifa only after a trade, or this sort of premature trade comes in from a very well-placed C4. Prone still below, still on that pulse, but now with no more explosives in the pocket of Cumberland, especially after Norway hits the deck, means that yes, he can have info, yes, he can pressure, yes, he can shoot drones and delay out time, but the kill potential for this pulse below has been greatly, greatly diminished. And once it comes down to a kind of plant denial, that is going to mean a lot only if Cumberland don't even it up even without him, and another swing comes through down onto Space. Now Cumberland sitting with a man advantage after things really looked like they were going away from them. Jetcon with a kill onto Prone. Great from him, and could potentially res out one of these players. Space still down, but Akron are rotating around looking to get him back onto his feet as they're walking back up main stairs, looking to group up 3-on-1 over towards his con side. But the thing is, with that down, and with them rotating around the entirety of the map, now Akron still at a man advantage, but now the time is just so low for them. 15 seconds on the clock as Akron are now forced into an opposite side clear. And with Spoonman walking back, no!
Attackers recovered the
He
bomb.
overexposes himself, and Akron with an advantage that could still slip away from them, but Jetcon cuts it down. And even in the scoreline, finally, is Akron 5-5 between these two teams.
After the side switch, this overall Cumberland defense is trying their best to play really aggressive in the early round. When spawn peaks and running out doesn't work for you, they brought out a pulse. But with that roam, specifically that pulse, just overstaying his welcome, moving way too slow, and a lot of questionable individual decisions from Cumberland. There were 3 separate 1v1 or isolated players that Akron were trying to play aggressive. They're trying to take those 1v1s in situations where there's 2 downs, they could have won. But after those 2 players got down, played way too aggressive, trying to put that pressure, essentially trying too hard to apply that pressure to Akron, gave Akron the opportunity to yet again punish that overzealous play.
Timeout very well timed for Cumberland. It's not like they're sitting at a match point against them and it, we could say, oh, too little, too late. This is kind of the perfect time to take it. As we started this map, they looked very, very, looked very, very, very good. And now over the past few rounds, Akron has just put more and more and more on the board and closed this gap up to the point where these teams are sitting at an even round count, and Cumberland one away from that match point, not wanting to let it slip even further. Not a ton of adaptation as far as operators, though. Still the Legion, still Rifa on the Solus. Still a Smoke, still Prone. Yeah, this looks like the exact same operator lineup, and not all that much has changed, but hopefully we can, I don't know. like
Hopefully you play it different.
pull back the aggression and not
Yeah.
swing directly into Akron. I mean, yeah, like usually after a timeout and usually after a team has given away so many rounds, what I'd like to see is not only just a change in playstyle, but also a change in operators to, you know, display that change in playstyle, at least visually to us, but also, I don't know, give you more tools to fix the problems that you've had, but no change as far as operators for Cumberland is a bit puzzling.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit of a hater here. I don't like this run with Rifa. It would have gone fantastic a year ago, but with the changes to Rifa, I mean, he has to really expose himself. Not only does he have to take out his scanner or remove his gun, but then he has to scan simply just to find any info. And if there's nothing around, he wastes a scan. And I think it's kind of a thing where, again, I spoke about how it would have worked a year ago, but because of that, especially with the amount of info for Akron having those Grim Bees, their consistent drone economy, sure, you're going to be able to shoot a couple of drones, but that's the best that you're going to be able to do.
Especially also after losing something like impacts. Although there aren't any claymores out of the side of Akron, if you want to keep that aggression up, it is a lot better to have something like impacts in your pocket to be able to deny any sort of place down utility, maybe an impact trick, or maybe stopping something like a claymore or a nomad. For Cumberland's defense, though, it seems like just a very shallow roam to be able to shoot drones, to lay out a little bit of time, and Rifa all on his lonesome on this mid-floor until Norway walks that main and gets away? Both of the players survive that engage. That should never happen. Either Norway should find the kill, or Costa should be able to find the punish. Either way, what? He just walks back up?
Checkcon's just sitting there! How can you let that happen? You still have Rifa over by Strip Club trying his best to waste time. Not exactly sure if that drone did see him, but they know he's over here. It doesn't matter. He goes for the swing and he loses it. Sure, you lose that ace and you still have Pronesters. Go back to the bomb site. Help your team. Oh no, Space, please, please, Space. There's a drone and he's dead here. I mean, Cumberland, they're playing so slow. They should have been, all three of those players should have been down to the bomb site an entire minute and 30 ago, but because they overstayed their welcome, they gave 3 isolated 1vx engagements to Akron.
Thought maybe the adaptation would be to temper the aggression, to stop swinging directly into Akron, but it seems like the call was just to swing body after body after body, and all of those swings did not work out for Cumberland. A single pick for them, and that really, even with that benefit, should have happened significantly earlier. This round has been a travesty for Cumberland. Even still, could find their way back into this as Spoonman finds 2 kills towards Blue, evens it back out into 2 versus 2, is traded by Space, and Jobu closes it out. Match point for Akron. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Again, I mean, like, having the Solicit strip, like, not only would that work better a year ago, even a year ago is still just kind of a useless strat, because the best chance you have is to get a trade, but at the same time, it's kind of like you're just wasting it. You want to have, especially Cumberland, they really need that man advantage going in to the execution phase, especially on basement, because they didn't have that. Akron were able to play very aggressive, and on the other side of things, Cumberland, because they didn't have that man advantage, they were completely isolated. The last 2 players completely alone, forced to play aggressive, forced to put themselves in 1vx after 1vx. And the exact same thing I said on map 1 is we saw Cumberland play better. This site specifically, a couple of rounds ago, it's a round where it was just poor decision after poor decision, and Akron, they took advantage of it.
And that was also just a strangely terrible round for Cumberland. And it's so strange because throughout the entirety of this map, it has actually been so even between these 2 teams. The level of play, I mean, discount the first 7-0. If you took just this map, it was a very close back and forth, both teams looking not just okay, but very, very good. And then that last round, Cumberland just looked horrendous.
It is really questionable. I'm not exactly sure if it's kind of the, It's not the momentum. It's not the pressure. They took a timeout. That was a purposeful decision. They just played it. I think it's one of the things where I talked about how one of Cumberland and also these lower seeded teams' main problems against Akron is they just play to default. They try to take out a pick. It just didn't work. I think this bag is the main problem. It is the Achilles heels for Cumberland, is that after a while, they just kind of run out of things to try and bring to surprise Akron. It allows for Akron to play these rounds really relatively like easy in default.
A lot of good info for Akron as an operator has finally played something that I was talking about since the first round of the first map. Nokubi, an operator that is just blanket strong on pretty much every single site and is finally used, but doesn't really get them a ton of info because for Cumberland, instead of doing the aggression that we saw from last round, they are all just dropped back turtle on site for this round. Match point for Akron. They're doing a lot of good work to start, but still that hatch isn't open. One of those pellets missed, so instead they're forced to put yet another 2, but an opening for Cumberland. Hopefully that means that they can continue the good that we've seen out of them, at least on the first half and one of the rounds on this half, to get to that to get to overtime against Akron and keep themselves alive.
Losing space, not only in the kill department, but also all of that intel with the IQ scanner is just going to be so bad. But a huge drone from Zosa, one of the very first rounds in a late round where Akron, they have drones to use, and it's going to just come down to the flood down hatch.
Drops coming through for Akron, completely uncontested from Cumberland, and a few flashes to go out keeps them in place, but the swing is coming out for Cumberland, and it is allowed to go through. Kosa kind of just standing there. And he was the only player that dropped? Yeah, all the players of Akron are still towards mid-floor, and JetCon still looking for vertical pressure. Cases down on site, Akron. You have a man disadvantage, and the drop coming through was just completely unprotected. 25 seconds, things slow down just a little bit. But Util's still going out. JetCon is just in sight now. He's walking in through the mid-floor. Or sorry, through the mid-hallway, but kills are still going Cumberland's way as Jobu, the last alive in a 1 versus 3. Looking for the swing, looking for the feet, but a shot through a wall, and Spoonman gets his team, Cumberland, to overtime to keep themselves alive in this matchup. And a puzzling round going towards Akron, followed by a puzzling round going towards Cumberland.
Akron is not on their A game today. I don't really care about that 7-0. I'm going to throw that out. That didn't happen. Because this map on Clubhouse, I mean, they're just making poor decisions. I mean, you just have one guy drop
during that timeout. Like what?
I think the biggest problem is if you have that isolated player drop, that's fine. But nobody's in dirt. Nobody's in blue. You just send Hibana into the bomb site to die. Like, you had a drone. You knew that there were at least 2 players over by AKs. You knew that they had a really good line of sight. You knew that they still had the smoke. It's just a situation where it's a round where Akron just was not on the same page. They were not thinking, and it was an absolute cluster for them.
Still, out of the cluster and out of the chaos, Cumberland come away with a much-needed round. We talked about the first map being 7-0. Cumberland coming into this have managed to keep it incredibly close. They have a pretty good chance of winning, even after the catastrophe of a round that we saw second to last. Just a few more rounds, and now they're starting on their defense, which usually I'd say, yeah, that's good for them. Starting on defense in overtime on Clubhouse, that's great. But this has been a 4-2-4-2 kind of attacking showcase from both of these two teams, so it is leaning a little bit towards Akron's way, not only just in the fact that we saw a 7-0 to start this matchup, but also just based on the sides that we've seen from this map.
You could also see how much that Akron is worrying about this round, specifically the position that Rifa's playing. Similar to the last one, he isn't going to be trying to stay his position. He tried to make his way over to CC like he did before, and with a Jackal ping, 3 players who've already got a couple of shots onto him, this is a situation where he has to go back down to the bomb site. Once that Jackal tracker goes up, though, he could potentially work his way back up. But again, with those feet already in place, it's just another track that they need. And Cumberland going into a bunker style defense, and now it's simply just up to whether or not Cumberland go for a flank, or if there is no flank, it just comes down to Akron having consistent time management and then being able to have enough info on the bomb site and displacement utility to move the defender positions on the bomb site around.
Akron also need to punish these Cumberland members, because if Norway does the exact same thing as that, the last few rounds where he kind of just walks up main stairs and is allowed to do so with complete freedom, I think I will lose my mind. The aggression is coming through, and almost a kill for Kosa. Norway almost walks into it as he's pressuring out the vertical angles made by by Akron. Kosa just waiting for this overswing, waiting for this over-aggression, and it's always just about a half a foot away from him. 45 seconds, and now finally Norway dropping back to church. He isn't going to get over-aggressive, and that's good for Cumberland because it wastes down time without them having to lose any bodies in the process. C4 going out doesn't really find all that much for Cumberland. Still one in the pocket of Rifa. Still a good amount of post-plant util, because not only is it just that C4, but it's also 3 smoke canisters in the pocket of Prone Stars. So when Akron finally drop down and start going for that execute, they are potentially looking down the barrel of a mountain of utility for Cumberland. Already some of that utility coming out. Lots of delays. I don't know what that Kiba is sitting on. Just absolutely in the middle of the hallway and completely horizontal as well. Either way, Akron clear. 30 seconds left and time is just ticking further and further, and yet again a pick just slightly too elusive for Akron. Instead, that opening is going to go towards Norway very late, and trades all going Cumberland's way. Jobu on site, but he gets cut off for Cumberland. Sitting at overtime, match point, it almost got away from them, but they could close it out with one more round on their very good attack.
Cumberland trying their best to make the miracle comeback after losing 7-0 in a matchup that they have no business winning. This is Akron's matchup to lose. This is, again, a fantastic spot. Whether or not, let's be honest here, Cumberland wins here, they win in the next match, they go to the final, they're more than likely going to have to face Akron again. But the fact that they've been able to push back and punish Akron, force Akron to make so much mistakes. I talked about before that a lot of the rounds, especially the CR6 stats, not one player from Akron is in top 5 in plants. Akron is a team that doesn't necessarily plant, not because they don't want to, but because a majority of their attacking rounds end in that first half. But if defending teams can force Akron into an execution phase with a healthy man count on that bomb site, it doesn't really favor Akron, and that's exactly what Cumberland has been doing on this defense on Clubhouse.
Hydra. That's what it is. It's the serpent, Greek mythology.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to figure out. Because you brought something up, and I was like, oh, hold on. That reminds me of the thing previously. Hopefully, for Akron, as they're sitting, looking down the barrel of overtime match point, this isn't a Hydra situation. It isn't a situation of knocking someone down so hard in the first map 7-0, only to have them come back and fight with an absolute vengeance. Although it looks like that's what we're kind of seeing out of Cumberland. Once again, Cumberland were looking down the barrel of a match point previously at 6-5, but they've gotten 2 rounds for themselves, and now have the the ability to just straight up take this map out of the hands of Akron right here and right now, and they're not letting it get to their heads. They're not letting that overtime at the top of the screen let them just absolutely run around and feed Akron. They're once again doing their due diligence. They're losing drones, but that does mean that they're able to take space very, very safely.
Rifa is eventually able to find space, but the problem is, that's not JetCon. Or not JetCon, but yeah, that's not JetCon in bar! That's JetCon that was able to find Rifa, get that refrag, Zosa with another one, and it's starting to all fall apart as they were not fully aware of all of these players on their own.
No, the drones for the 3rd floor went very well, but once it came down to transitioning towards the mid floor, it all just fell apart. 2 picks for Akron, and it goes from an advantage to Cumberland to an advantage to Akron, and like we've been talking about throughout the entirety of this game, when it comes down to the basement site, you can just play bunker. That's exactly what Akron are doing. Plexios looking to sit at the exact same spot that Spooman was, trying to sit up on top of that shelf with Akiba to protect himself as well, to just give him a headshot, or sorry, a head glitch angle. I'm delaying out just a little bit as Cumberland, even with a man disadvantage, don't want to let things slip further at all. They're slowing down. They have 7 drones, now only 6. I took a very long time to do very simple addition, but
Attackers have located a bomb.
they're putting those
Attackers
drones
dropped
towards
the
site,
diffuser.
getting info out of these hard-holding members of Akron on site. But still, time is just ticking down and down and down. 45 seconds left. Prone walking down main stairs, looking for an absolute freebie, but Akron really are not giving it to him at all. Lexios could potentially walk into it, but it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen. 30 seconds left. Vertical still held by Cumberland. They've rotated one towards bottom main stairs, one towards this dirt position, but Akron are very well aware of it. Plexios sitting at just 1 HP, but it isn't going to matter as a headshot comes out of Tangly Tree. Swing comes out of dummies, but kills are going towards Akron's way. We could see an overtime match point 7-7 for both of these teams, and that's exactly what ends up happening as Kosa cuts down the drop and doubles off of it as well.
Going on to the last round, Irish, we have a little bit of a problem. Both teams only getting 2 rounds on the defense. No different here. But you know what is different here, Irish?
What is
You
different?
can't go basement.
Curious.
The only 2 rounds that Cumberland won was on basement. The only round 1 they have so far in overtime is basement. But because they won it on the very first overtime round, if you're not very familiar with how Siege works or just how overtime works, if
No,
you're
I'm
more
not.
of
I'm
a
stupid.
ranked and casual player, you can only play
Defenders,
one
protect
bomb
your
site
bombs
if you've
from
won
being
it
defused by
once.
attackers.
Now forcing Cumberland to not only go to a bomb site that they have not yet to win, but then they go to choose the bomb site that is statistically worse for the defense. That being CC and Cash over Master and Jim.
It could potentially be the Mira ban, because Mira is something that makes that Jim just that much stronger, but either way, like you talked about, Jim is statistically on paper, but also even just, you know, in the ranked meta,
10 seconds
it's
to insertion.
the much favored site because teams have figured out how to play it much better,
5
and
seconds left
alternatively,
before insertion.
attacking teams have figured out how to attack CCTV so well that
Moving to defuse a bomb.
either way, yeah, even without the Mira, it's kind of a puzzling decision to go here. For Cumberland, this could potentially be the last round that they play. We talk about this site being a little bit of a risk, and it's a risk on what could be the last round in this matchup. Akron at 1 map to the good, and also an overtime match point. All that they need to do is win on a site where really you should be winning, you know, at least 8 times out of 10.
You can see how a lot of these defender positions are all just bunched up on this bomb site. Cumberland, they don't really want to take a chance for going for these really heavy extensions or roams. They don't want to go for these aggressive spawn peaks or runouts. They want to just try and play the default game. Shoot a couple of these drones as they try to drone out these close sight positions. You have one player inside of garage. You have another, that being Rifa on the Maluzi, being paired with also Prone Stars holding yet again another pixel angle. Space, he needs to understand that he needs a little bit more info, but the thermite not only opens the position, but it kills Prone Stars with it.
A complete misplay from Cumberland's defense. What looked like a very good over-under instead leads to Prone Stars dying to a thermite charge. That is absolutely unacceptable, and especially right now where we talked about they are 1 round between them getting knocked into the lower bracket, and they're making mistakes like that on a site that already is just so difficult. Norway getting hit down to so low HP, and finally a close out of Kosa as he triples down, finding 2 more, not just on a thermite charge, but also able to land some fantastic shots. And it's a 2 versus 5 for Cumberland, and their chances are just dwindling. 1 minute on the clock for Akron. They have so much time, so many positions, and a lot of info as well walking in. Just actually staying arm's length on site. Spooman looking to play off of his traps. Hold on. Finds one onto Plexios. It's a good shot, but Case is getting stuck on site. A little bit of damage to Kosa, but either way, it doesn't matter because Cumberland forced into a post-plant retake with a man disadvantage in a 1 versus 4. Spooman, the last alive, and Akron take the series 2-0, but a lot closer than I think you and I really expected at all.
The best result that Cumberland was able to find was just making Akron bleed. That's all they were able to get, just a couple droplets of blood. They weren't able to even get a map. Having a 4-2 start, coming off of the attack, keep in mind, ending up losing it in maximum overtime. And, a lot closer than both of us not only thought, but said over and over and over again. Cumberland, they did make me eat our words, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough to at least get one map.
And a truly unfortunate loss for Cumberland. Again, like we talked about, this at a certain point was actually really, really winnable for them. They got themselves match point. They had a lot of opportunities as well, especially after getting a 4-2 half on your attacking side of Clubhouse. But Akron, the stronger team, eventually prevailed against Cumberland. Now, again, it's double elimination, so we'll see Akron in the grand finals. We could very well potentially see the other. Oh my god, I forgot the name. We could see both of these teams back in the grand finals once again, because it is a double elim bracket, and both of these teams looked really strong on the day. Cumberland.
Yeah, it's Cumberland. Oh, the good
But
thing though.
That's all for us right now. We have Rocket League on 7 p.m. this Thursday, Eastern Time. Overwatch at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as well on Friday. And also the lower finals at 3 p.m. Saturday. For CLOL and CVAL.
Oh, yeah. And also, I think something that's a little different for us, something a little different for you all. Next Wednesday, not only the grand finals for us, you'll see us 2 weeks instead of every other week, but also right before we go on at 8 p.m. Eastern for our grand final, seeing Akron, whichever against, whether it be Cumberland or another team from the lower bracket, we have also CS2 starting at 7 p.m., I believe, on the A stream right before we do. But you know what time it is? You know what time it is, Irish? Time for us to wrap
Sleep
it up.
time?
Yeah, it is sleep time. It's sleep time, eat time. You can't stay here. You gotta go somewhere else. But we will see you along with CS on the A stream next week, Wednesday at 7 and 8. But aside from that, hope you all have a great rest of your night.
Lord, help me get over this loss.
I can't breathe.
Hey, I can't breathe. I'm so upset. I can't breathe. Stop. You knock on wood so they go to heaven. It's like a lucky. Hey, get the stick.
Yeah,
Hey, did you get the meat stick?
yeah, I got it.
Hey, just hold tight for a second. They're moving the casket. Just hold tight.
Yeah, it's no worries. I got it.
What exactly is plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. 100% pure protein-packed power in a stick. I want Wenzel's Farm. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. What exactly is a meat substitute or plant-based jerky? Call me a meathead, but when I want a meat snack, I want real meat. The kind you find at Wenzel's Farm and the only kind they use. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked right here in the heartland of America. Wenzel's Farm offers 14 flavors of mouth-watering protein-packed power in a stick, except no substitute. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. Looking for something to power your day? Then look no further than Wenzel's Farm Snack Sticks. Handcrafted in small batches and naturally hardwood smoked, these protein-packed power sticks deliver truly sustainable energy. Wenzel's Farm, real meat for real life. You work hard and play hard. You need real fuel to power your day, not some tofu